everybody? Welcome to the Battery Mates podcast. I am Dirty Dave, and that's the Sandman Sean over there. Mr. Sean, we are in a post-Braves world right now. We're just navigating through it, watching other teams play baseball, grossly enough. And yeah, how's the offseason treating you, man?
Well, not too bad. Like I put out on social media earlier this week. Sorry we didn't get an episode up last week. Dealing with some, I had a concussion from a car accident a few weeks back, so just kind of dealing with that. Didn't feel up to it, but I will say the postseason is treating me as well as it could, considering the Braves aren't playing because the Phillies are also not playing. So there's nobody else in the NL East that is out there playing right now. So treating me about as good as it can. The Astros went down, so we got two new bloods kind of in the World Series this year. So as good as baseball can treat me without the Braves on, it's treating me pretty well.
Yeah, I was not looking forward to what I think I and most people assume would be a Phillies Astros World Series. I was not excited for that at all. I was ready to not watch and pretend it wasn't happening. And then all of a sudden, here we are. We're given two very exciting teams that had not been able to put it together up to this point, and then all of a sudden, in 1 year, you think about the Rangers deciding just to spend as much money as possible, and the Diamondbacks doing the exact opposite. Anybody with a salary was gone, bringing in a whole bunch of young bloods who just don't even know where they're at right now. They have no idea they're supposed to be nervous and not playing up to their potential. And it's just really exciting. We're recording with a 2-1 series for the Rangers, but now Adolis Garcia's out. And by the time this episode gets out, we'll have a whole nother game done. So who knows what we're going to be looking at that point. But, I think I agree with you. I think postseason baseball has been fun. And then, yesterday was a sports equinox. You can't beat that. So yeah, sports Dave is incredibly happy with the goings-ons in the world right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when we were scheduled to record last week, I think both the Diamondbacks and Rangers were down in their series. So I definitely, if we would have recorded, I don't know that either of us would have picked these two teams to have been where they're at now. I had the Rangers in 6 starting this series off, which looked pretty good until the 8th inning of last night's game. Like you mentioned, Garcia going down, that oblique. And as much as we've played Scherzer as much as we have, being in the NL East and all of that. If this is it, I hate to see him go out the way that he did. His back injury, and now him and Garcia both done for the series. So just because I'm a man of integrity, I'm going to stick with my Rangers in 6. But it's going to be a lot bigger of a battle, I think, to get that done than it would have been with probably the hottest player in baseball, Adolis Garcia, and in the lineup there, kind of anchoring down that middle of the lineup for the Rangers.
Yeah, and it is a completely different series, but we're still watching every game. We're in for the long haul, honestly. With it, I'm excited to see all the tips and the turns and the roller coaster loops. If it was predictable, I probably wouldn't be having fun right now. So
Rangers just went up 1-0. They're up 1-0 in the second.
Yeah, and we talked about a little bit already how they went about this thing so differently. There's really never any one specific way to make a World Series team, to make a championship caliber team. We've seen teams that are 5 aces deep. We've seen teams with incredible bullpens that get a lead in the 4th inning, 1-0, and you're going to win the rest of the game. And we've had successful teams with offenses averaging 9-10 runs a game. So it kind of shows there's not one blueprint to getting to this level and being as successful as these teams are. But when you look at the Rangers and the Diamondbacks and even the Astros and Phillies, who are coming off 2 straight seasons with playoff series victories, Sean, what do you think it is that the Braves need to do to get to that, what could they learn from these teams, how they're being successful? Is there anything you could pinpoint the Braves need to really focus in on?
I think the biggest thing is the Braves were built for 162. But both of the last two postseasons, and not to make excuses, baseball is hard. If it was easy, like I said a couple weeks ago, everybody would do it. Okay. So baseball is hard. That's part of it. But we limped into the playoffs with our pitching the last 2 years. So one of the things that you saw with the Phillies, that you see with the Astros, you've seen it with the Diamondbacks, you've seen it with the Rangers, is you have guys step up and contribute on the mound that you may not necessarily expect to do some of the things they did. So for the Phillies, Ranger Suarez was good both in the DS and the CS. I mean, Suarez was better than I think people thought he was going to be in both of those series, pitched very well. You know, you have Fott from the Diamondbacks who came out and has pitched very well in the postseason.
He was
as a
horrendous during the regular season. I mean, just
That's what I was
awful.
gonna
You
say.
couldn't even play him.
No, as a rookie in the regular season, he just was bad. And he comes out and he pitches exceptionally well in the postseason. And the Braves were kind of the opposite. You know, they come in, Fried's not pitched in 18 or 19 days when he takes the mound. You know, Morton is out for the DS. So then all of a sudden, your 1, 2, 3 of Fried, Strider, Morton is now a Rusty Fried, Strider, and Bryce Elder, who wasn't good the second half of the year, was excellent in the first half, but and Braves probably don't have the record they have and don't have the position they have if you don't have Elder do what he did in the first half. So this isn't a knock on Bryce Elder, but Bryce Elder was our opening day starter in Gwinnett. Like, you didn't think Bryce Elder was going to be your game 3 starter in the DS when you start the season with him as your opening day starter in Gwinnett. And so I think for the Braves, sometimes your offense goes cold. I mean, even if you look at Philadelphia, Turner, Schwarber, Harper, I think in the deciding game, I think they went 1 for 11 against the Diamondbacks. Those guys, and their lineup kind of cooled off once Castellanos hit that home run early in the series against the Diamondbacks. He was awful the rest of the way.
Yeah.
So I think you just see that there are ebbs and flows in baseball when it comes to the offensive side of the ball. But if you have good pitching, or you have guys that step up and be good pitchers, even if they weren't maybe the rest of the way, that come up in the postseason. So I think you have to find a way to shore that pitching staff up. And whether you think you can do that through the pitching depth that the Braves have, because they do. They have some quality arms that they brought up that we saw some good things from this year. Whether you think you can do it through those guys, I don't. You know, you can't throw that on. Not everybody's going to be what Fott was or has been so far this year, where they can come up and take some licks in the regular season only to be a completely different pitcher on the mound. So I think you have to shore up the pitching, and then, like Strider said, I think you have to say something about the way we're preparing for the playoffs isn't working, because the offensive side of the baseball was lacking both of the last two postseasons. And so, yeah, we can blame it on the layoff, because outside of Houston, everybody that had that layoff has been bad the last 2 years. But at some point, that's not an excuse. That's the way it's going to play. And you're not going to go out there. I don't think yet you're going to go out there and see teams that don't care about 162. So if you're going to go out there and win 104 games, or you're going to go out there and win 101 games, then you need to figure out a way to carry that over. And so we can complain about this playoff format and structure and all that, but I really do think it comes down to pitching. If you've got two guys that you can trot out there that you trust to say, okay, you're going to give us a good game, and then you have a guy or two that steps up, your bullpen holds it together, I just think I think that it's definitely more. You said there are multiple ways to build a team, but I think when you look at the common denominator, unless the Rangers win it this year, it's pitching staff.
Yeah.
You've got to have a good pitching staff, and your pitchers have to be pitching well when they get to the playoffs.
Yeah, and it includes the bullpen as well. You can't just worry about starting pitching. You need to have somebody to start, but I mean, even when you get to the bullpen games, you have to be able to get your guys through the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th inning and know, okay, every single person I put out there is good for an inning to get me 0 runs, keep everyone off the board. And I don't think anybody felt that way about the Braves bullpen limping into the playoffs this year. I kind of feel like even if it got to the point where they needed relievers because they were losing so early in the games they lost, I still would have not had the confidence that they would have been able to finish it up. And, you know, we'll talk about the first move of the offseason here in a little bit, but, you know, it looks like they're saying, okay, guys that can perform in the bullpen, we're going to put them in the bullpen. We're going to walk into next year confident. You know, I think it might be time to stop hoping that guys who were really good closers 4 years ago and then suffered 3 years worth of injuries are going to be your answer come playoff time. Because it's not like you can't name more than one of the guys who's like that the bullpen right now. They do it seemingly every year. They pick up somebody like this, which I get it. It's a thing, you know. GMs, just like, you know, people have who they're into, you know, and AA wants those guys in the bullpen to trust in big spots, especially come playoff time, and feel like, hey, they could pitch the 6th inning like the 9th inning they did a few years ago. But the other most important thing to me is on the hitting side, we talk about the offense. I think it comes down to that approach. I think it comes down to, you know, things that are so cliche in baseball, but aren't false in baseball either. You know, you have to be able to draw walks. You have to be able to extend at bats. You know, if you walk out there and you have an ace pitcher, you know, if you're facing the Phillies and playoff Zach Wheeler's on the mound, you know, you can't walk up there and have him throw 7 pitches every inning, go a complete game shutout. You have to have 7, 8 pitch at bats. You have to extend at bats, foul pitches off. And it kind of felt like the 162 mantra for swinging is, hey, swing for the fences, even if it's 2 strikes, even if you know, you're not seeing the pitches well, still swing for the fences. And in playoff baseball, that doesn't work. You're facing the best pitchers in the world. And if you try to sit there and put everything you can into that 0-2 pitch, they're just going to be good enough to get it past you. And it doesn't seem like the Braves changed that approach to get into these bullpens. You know, there's a lot of guys who just perform worse in the playoffs every single year. They're not made for the moment. And, you know, so if you could get to a guy and, oh man, this guy had a 1.3 ERA in the regular season, that doesn't mean he can't give up 5 runs in the 8th inning against you. But if the ace is still on the mound, you'll never get there.
Yeah, you can't let Zach Wheeler go out and throw 7. You just can't. The thing with a bullpen, and this was the thing with why I was against a bullpen game for Game 3 for the Braves, is because once you get into a bullpen, you have to, like, not everybody's going to have their best stuff every night.
Right.
And the more times that bullpen door opens, the more times you have a chance of somebody not having their stuff. And that's where it goes back. You were talking about approach. A guy comes in, and all of a sudden he doesn't have command over anything but his fastball. Okay, well, if you extend at bats and you see that from a guy in the bullpen, walks a couple guys, then you get into some of your big hitters that you have with the Braves. You know, you have your guys like Olson and Riley and Acuna, those guys, and it's like you set dead red because you can't control anything else. And then that's when you see those guys take advantage of those pitchers and that revolving door of the bullpen. And so I do think, like you said, you definitely have to have that approach. And I'm sure it's difficult to say, okay, you know, we're going to hit this way for 162, and then we're going to turn around and not hit this way in a 5-game series that's, you know, this big compared to the regular season. You know, I'm sure that's difficult. But even if it's saying, okay, look, we're not going to necessarily completely change our approach, but what we are going to do is we're going to take the first strike, or we're going to, like, you have to come up with something that causes these at-bats to get a little bit longer, give you a better chance of getting into a bullpen. And you get into a bullpen early in a series, all of a sudden that bullpen gets a lot shorter the rest of the way. And so I do agree. I think, like you said, you've got to have your offense kind of have the right approach. Pitching's got to be pitching well, because like you said, you're not going to face a 4 and 5 starter in a 5-game series in a DS. You're just not. You're going to get the two horses on the team, and you might get one guy. And that was what we did, and we didn't take advantage of the Suarez games, which is what you've got to do. You know what you have in Nola. You know what you get in Wheeler. You can't have Suarez go out there and do what he did. And so I do think that the Braves will shore some things up in the pitching department this offseason. But offensively, we're pretty much locked in. You kind of know who you're going to trot out there for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
So you've got your catchers locked up in Murphy. You've got Olson locked up at first. Albies locked up at second. Riley locked up at third. Harris locked up in center. Acuna locked up in right. You've got your offense. You know who your guys are. So go out and make sure that your pitching's ready and you've got those guys. And I think I see AA's he did shift a little bit. And like you said, we're going to get to it later, but you've got your guys, Joe Jimenez, that pitched very well. You've got your guys, Pierce Johnson, who was a heck of a get when you consider what we traded for him and how that came together. So I'm hoping we see that shift a little bit, and that bullpen kind of shores up there in the back. But we're down some guys in the bullpen too. Jesse Chavez, who is Superman in a Braves uniform. For whatever reason, that dude is a different guy as an Atlanta Brave. He was out and didn't play in the DS after having hurt his shin earlier in the year. Matzik, Tommy John, who had probably, if you said what was the best pitching performance you've ever seen, it was that inning against the Dodgers where he strikes out Pujols. He comes in second and third, nobody out. Dodgers don't score a run, and the Braves go on to win. So you've got a couple of guys like that were out, and so I just think baseball's hard, and if you're not on your game, you're going to run into some teams that are. So, but I'm excited about the future. You can't have a core locked up like the Braves and get too ho-hum about what the future is going to look like, because the future is pretty bright in Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely bright. It's just my heart is from Chicago, and I see what happened with the White Sox rebuild, where you thought, oh, Yoán Moncada is going to be an MVP candidate, Luis Robert is going to be an MVP candidate. They got this guy, and 2 or 3 of them don't pan out, and this guy becomes a star and then all of a sudden falls off, and this guy one year he's the best player in baseball, the next year he might be not even an all-star candidate. You don't think that's going to be a problem with this Braves team by any stretch, but the most important thing to say is that if you start that window with a championship and you only finish with 1 championship, you had all the what ifs in the world. I mean, and you were great in your mind, and you thought this would be a time where you win 3 or 4, and you look forward to every year. And it's all we have our seasons where we're the best team, but that don't put a ring on anybody's finger, man. That just looks good in group chats when you guys are thinking about the future. But you got to win another one if you want to sit here and say, wow, what a very, very successful time for the Braves, because they've already had a great time where they only won 1 ring, and they're still kind of mocked about it to this day, kind of across a lot of baseball. So, I get why people are like, I get it. We should relax and appreciate what it is, but I get it, is all I'm saying. I see why people are feeling that way, Sean.
Absolutely. And of course, like, when you got a team built like this, you're built to win. And so that's the nature of the game. But the fact is you've got 29 other teams every year that don't win. And really 1 in 30 is not great odds.
Nope.
In any capacity. So yes, people mock the 90s and 2000s Braves, for all the division titles in one World Series, and that's fine. But when you set through those 4 years, where the Braves go win, 79, 68, 72, and 64, you have a couple of years like that. It makes these years, it really puts that perspective on it. And it's like, look, man, you can sit here and say that it was a disappointment or it was a this or a waste or a bust or blah, blah, blah. That's fine. I'd much rather come in and watch these guys every day win 104 games, do the things that they did, and be able to look back and be like, man, at least I wasn't the Mets,
Imagine being the Mets. Ugh. Ugh.
Yeah, how bad would that be? So, but yeah, I get it. It's one of those things, and emotions run hot as soon as something like that happens, and you come in riding as high as the Braves were, and as good as they were this season, to fall short, and I think people probably have a different conversation if it's not the Phillies again, and I think that's part of the conversation too.
Sure
is if this isn't the Phillies that beat us, if something happens and we face the Diamondbacks and the Diamondbacks were who beat us, is it a disappointment? Yes. But it's not the same. It's not the Phillies doing it 2 years in a row in almost identical fashion. So, also, not to completely change subject, Rangers have went up 5-0 in the second.
Yeah, so it's looking like we're going to have a 3-1 lead in that series unless something crazy happens. But I think that the Rangers are throwing their fourth starter out today, so who knows, right? Heaney, right?
Yeah, you've got Heaney out there, yep.
So depends what Heaney you get. It could very well still be a close game. Yeah. But speaking of close games, and a guy we talked about a little bit, we did get our first transaction of the offseason. This is the first move that you and I get to discuss as Braves podcast hosts, and it's Pierce Johnson, baby.
Pierce Johnson. I love the move. Yeah. I'm going to be honest with you. People were kind of like, who's this guy when he came over from Colorado? Just because, he was pretty bad in Colorado.
He was really bad.
He wasn't very good. And so, in Colorado, let's see, he pitched in 43 games in Colorado to a 6.00 ERA. 39 innings pitched. For the Braves, he pitched 24 games to the tune of a .76 ERA. So you talk about
relievers are the guys who, like, one coach is going to find one thing to change and turn him from the worst pitcher to the best. Like, I hear this about all the time. Like teams will just take on rehab assignments every year, basically, from relievers and be like, hey, we talked about how the Braves love to do it with guys like Nick Anderson and Kirby Yates and stuff like that, where it's like, hey, you were a really good closer 3 years ago. You can come pitch a sixth inning in Atlanta. But a lot of times those are very educated decisions because you have like one coach who's like, if you give me that guy, I can turn him into a superstar. I can turn him into a great closer. Sometimes it's as simple as, hey, by the way, you throw like a 2-seam fastball, you should probably throw a 4-seamer, and all of a sudden your ERA goes from 6 to 2. Or, hey, you throw your curveball 8% of the time, that pitch sucks. Never throw that pitch ever again. Every time you're going to throw a curveball, I want you throwing a fastball now. And people have their film and they're so caught off guard by this new fastball that he's throwing in these counts that they're like, oh my goodness, and they're done for. So who knows what the Braves coaches found and said, bring me Pierce Johnson, and then turned him into an absolute baseball pitching machine. But until I see otherwise, there's no reason to think he can't be a 2 or lower ERA guy next year if they unlock something with him.
Absolutely. And the thing was too is you got him at a Coors Field. Like, there's something to be said just about that. Because realistically, and I don't have it directly in front of me, but I'm wanting to say that his away ERA before coming to Atlanta was still like mid threes, like low fours, somewhere in there. Like he had a pretty good road home split, like that showed like he's a lot better not at Coors Field.
Right.
And so I think that's probably that you have that has to take into account. You kind of assume that if you have a batter coming over from Colorado, you're going to see a little bit of a regression typically because they get to play half their games in Colorado. If you have a pitcher coming over, you feel like you're going to see a little bit of a progression because they get to pitch. They pitched half their games in Colorado. So I think you see that part of it. But, the Braves have, Rick Kranitz has been an excellent pitching coach uh, in his time in Atlanta. He's had tons of guys come in and improve drastically. And so I like the move. I think it shows that the Braves aren't satisfied. I think it does. I think it sends that message right off the bat because Johnson could have went to field free agent offers in like 2 weeks, and the Braves were like, "No, we're going to go ahead and get this done now. Like, we're just get it off the table. 2 years, $14.25 million with a third year option for another $7 million. So it can either be 2 at 14.2 or 3 for 21. So I think it's a good move. I think it's like you said, you're locking up that arm. That's not an old closer. That's you're hoping finds it again. It's not Kirby Yates coming off of an injury where he hasn't pitched in a year, and then Yates wasn't very good last year. This year, Yates was better and he was improved. But it's not Brad Hand coming over from the at the trade deadline. It's not Lucas, whatever his name is from the Yankees, Letke or whatever his name is.
I don't know how to pronounce it. You know what? I'm just gonna say
And
the
it can never
T
say.
shouldn't be next to the G. That's just not how the English language works very often. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
really his fault.
So
He can't
but he
pronounce
comes
it.
over. Exactly, not our fault. So, but it's not one of those guys. It's hey, look, this guy was a middle of the road reliever for Colorado, if that, and we brought him over, found something. You don't. It's hard to call it a fluke to pitch in 24 games and have a sub 1 ERA and be like, he was lucky. Like, baseball's harder than that, Like,
Yeah.
so
Imagine that kind
I
of
like the
luck. Oh
move.
my
I do
goodness.
think,
I'd feel my whole life would be different. Are
yeah,
you
right.
kidding me?
Exactly. So I think it's a good move to start the off season, and I think it shows Braves fans that hey, AA is not satisfied. The Braves aren't satisfied. We're coming back to try to do this thing again next year. So
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think it's a phenomenal move to. And the other good thing, and AA has never not done this. The Braves do this a lot, but it tells potential free agents because there's going to be a couple of veterans that are going to take massive pay cuts to come play for the Braves if they want to, and it shows guys you'll be rewarded for what you do here. If you come over to the Braves, we're going to treat you right. If you come over here, you outperform expectations, we're going to take care of you. Not every team does that, and that really makes a lot of guys feel like, why would I come sign for this team? Even if I go out there and play my best ball, it's not going to matter. I'm going to be in the same spot next year hoping a team signs me. But, the Braves, they're showing they're going to do that. They put a lot of faith in guys until they shouldn't have faith in those guys. Even bringing guys back. I mean, think about the impact Adam Duvall made in the championship team. When, I mean, just a year before, a lot of teams would have too much ego and say, I don't want to bring Duvall. I could have just signed him last year. I just gave up I have to give up a prospect for this guy that could have just signed with me. No, but they say, hey, the fans love you. You love playing here. You play well here. Come on back, man. I don't care if you sign for a division rival. If you can make this work here, we want you. I love that mentality by a sports team. I think every team needs to have people doing that for them.
absolutely, AA, like you said, he's shown that he is going to he's going to make the moves that he needs to make the Braves competitive. And that's really all you can ask for in a GM, and you think about it, that 21 team that won the World Series. I mean, he, even from spring training, he just kind of puzzle pieced it together and kind of did it as he went. You got guys like Pablo Sandoval, who came in and he paid him $1 million to hit the lights out of the ball for about 15 days and then sit on the end of the bench with a panda mask and hug people after they hit home runs. Like, he did what he had to do, and then he goes and gets Jock and he gets Soler. He brings Duvall back. He does all of those things, and you're just like, pretty happy with that. Oh, he got Rosario too. Can't forget that. Took 4 outfielders to replace what Ronald Acuna Jr. was doing to start 21, but they did it. And I think you love that as a Braves fan, when you've got a GM and a team that's willing to do that.
Yeah, and it really goes a long way with keeping morale up. And this is definitely a franchise that other teams across sports should be looking at. How do you make it so that you keep all of your star players? Well, if you do something a little differently and swoop in and say, hey, we'll take advantage of the system to the best of our abilities while not screwing our players over. I mean, it's everybody's dream. I mean, there's not a team out there that doesn't want guys taking hometown discounts and those players being happy to do it and saying, I want to do this for the organization. It's phenomenal. And if you're a manager for a new team, let's say, that's just starting off, for a new general manager, and you can use that to build a great team. You also need some former Braves legends if you're gonna make a great team in a new league. And that leads us to the Dubai Baseball United League, who just drafted some all-time great Atlanta Braves names recently as they're starting up their first season in existence. And the Braves were well represented in this new baseball league. Some all-time greats, some all-time GOATs. And by GOATs, I don't mean greatest of all time. I mean the guys that we make fun of. Remembering that they played 9 career games for the Atlanta Braves when they were 40 years old. Sean, how about some of these names we saw on this list? What was the one name that stood out to you? And I'll go through some of the other ones to follow up.
So I've got 2 names. So they stick with me for totally different reasons. I mentioned him earlier, Pablo Sandoval. I'm always going to have a heart spot in my heart for that dude because he won us a few games early in that 21 season that just like you watch some of those and you're just like, where did this dude come from? And then where did he go? He fell off as quick as he came back that year. And so the panda mask and all the stuff with that, he's always got a spot in my heart. And then you've got Andrelton Simmons, who, was the Braves shortstop that got them to Dansby Swanson. But he was one of the most beloved Braves, in his time with Atlanta. Defensive wizard. He was one of the few bright spots in the 2014 and 2015 team where, like I said, they won 79 and 68 games or something like that. And so those 2 guys were probably the 2 that stuck out the most to me. But there was a couple more on that list that gave me a good little chuckle.
Yeah, I mean, it was just such a phenomenal list of random, do you remember that guys? Do you remember that guy played for the Braves? Robinson Cano, who I mentioned earlier, 9 career games for the Braves, with about a 130 batting average over those 9 games. Jair Jurgens, former ace, I believe he got at least 1 opening day start. Is that right, John? Do you know off the top of your head?
Yeah. I think it was in 11, which was his All-Star year too. I believe
he was really good that year.
He had 1 All-Star. He was really good that year. He had a 4-year stretch where he was pretty good with Atlanta. So
somebody who had
was
no success with the Braves, but success with a lot of other places. 50-year-old Bartolo Colon will be pitching in the Dubai Baseball United League. What are we talking about
here? He was taken in the first round, wasn't he? He was taken in the first round.
Yeah.
Wasn't he?
I mean, he's the cornerstone for one of the franchises. I mean, that's
Like what are we doing? What are we doing? Didn't he like just formally retire with the Mets? Like, didn't that just happen?
Probably. I think his last time
I
pitching was
want to say he
20.
signed a 1-day contract or
Yeah, his
something.
last time pitching in the majors was 2018 when he was with Texas. So I mean that's yeah, 5 years later and he's 50. Jamie Moyer, eat your heart out, buddy. I mean you. I know you got to 49, but Pablo's going to be 75 years old, throwing about 70 miles per hour in some random country that becomes the richest in the world in the future, I guess.
Couple of Braves legends. Cano was one of those guys. I wish he would have worked out. When we signed him, I was like, yes, Robinson Cano. And then, that was when Albies went down. We were kind of trying to figure out what we were going to do at second base in 22. And I was really hoping, like maybe we can help him find it. Maybe Seitzer can find something for him. But like you said, I think he hit 130 or 170 or something like that in 9 games with the Braves. So just didn't quite pan out. But some absolute Braves legends on that list.
Will you be tuning into any of those games offhand? What do you think? I know I'm putting you on the spot here.
I wouldn't hold my breath. I wouldn't hold my breath. I might for the if I can figure out when Cologne is starting and if they're playing at a time when I'm awake, I might pop on just to see like what does 50-year-old Bartolo Colon look like on the mound right now. But outside of that, I'm not plugging it into my calendar to make sure that I catch too many of those.
Yeah, no, I definitely won't either. There's so many baseball leagues in the world. If I don't wake up for the Korean baseball organization or the Nippon Baseball League, I'm not going to wake up to watch Pablo Sandoval attempt to keep his belt on, as he struggled with multiple times in his career. Yeah, I won't be watching much of that either. But if a Brave does something cool, I promise our listeners that I will bring them that information and we can share in there. We'll share that moment with them for sure. Last thing I want to do today is I want to start a new segment that I kind of had an idea for as back when we were first discussing doing the show, which is a prospect of the week. I want to feature somebody who you can expect to be playing for the Atlanta Braves soon enough. And I'm actually going to be starting off with somebody who we saw at the end of this year in a kind of limited role, but had some opportunities to show what he's got. Talking about starting pitcher Darius Vines today. Sean, I know that you did you were looking a lot at him when he was coming up to the MLB. And what was your first initial thought about him before I go into a little more about him as a pitcher?
Well, I think the thing that I saw was he came up, he threw strikes. He pitched in 5 games. He started 2 of them. Both of his starts were quality starts. So he won at least 6. He pitched to a 3.98 ERA, which if you're looking for a 4 or 5 hole guy in your rotation, I mean, you'll take 3.98 all day. His WHIP was 1.08. So it even looks like that, hey, if he keeps that WHIP there, it feels like that ERA is going to come down a bit more. 14 Ks, 7 walks. Opponents only hit 203 off of him with a 274 OPS and a 419 slugging percentage. So, kid came up and he filled some valuable innings there down the stretch whenever we were kind of playing the merry-go-round of who's going to pitch today when Fried was down and Wright was down and, all the issues we had with the rotation this year. He came up and gave us a couple of good starts and then some extended 2 to 3 innings out of the bullpen kind of, following up off of an opener. So I liked what I saw from him.
Yeah, and for a prospect, he's older. In the top 25 of the Braves prospect rankings from MLB.com, he's tied for the oldest player at 25 years old. So he's somebody who's got to start taking the steps soon if he wants to be a part of the organization long term. But he's a number 10 prospect right now, 6'1", 190. He is a guy who's got solid but not great stuff, but he controls his pitches. He has a really good changeup that keeps hitters on their toes, and he uses pace to to try to get through hitters. And you saw work for a lot of guys who, who didn't know what to expect from him. There were a couple of games where he was making guys look pretty foolish, honestly. He kept them off guard with that changeup, got a decent breaking ball. I think he's definitely somebody who would have a pretty long back end of the rotation kind of career. I think of guys like Jason Hamill or Danny Duffy or players like that who they have a place in this league where they could pitch till they're 35, 36, 37 years old. Are they going to be the ace of his staff? Probably not. But, if you need a fourth starter for the playoffs and he's your guy, you're not like, oh my goodness, come on, not Darius Vines. So he's got to, take the steps soon. He had a good start to his career. He's got to really walk into next year's spring training and make it really tough for the Braves to not put him in the opening day rotation or put him in that spot, or he has to be like solidified as one of your go-to guys in the bullpen. Otherwise it might be too late. You get to 26, 27 years old, and not a lot of teams are going to be looking for a guy who can't stay at the MLB level. Well,
I think with his age, his saving grace is going to be that teams are going to understand that Atlanta's not a team that's going to bring somebody up at 25 that can't be competitive. Atlanta's not a destination to figure it out at. So can I see him being a trade piece if we don't feel like he can break the rotation next year, or that he can't be a Jesse Chavez type guy out of the bullpen? I could absolutely see him getting traded. You're going to have teams every year that need somebody to eat innings at the major league level. And the good thing about Darius Vines is he does not beat himself. He's going to pitch strikes. He's going to come after hitters. His K to walk ratio was 2, I think, at 14 strikeouts to 7 walks. I'll take that all day out of, like I said, a fourth or fifth starter. You've got teams like Kansas City, teams, like Oakland, teams, we traded Kyle Muller to Oakland in the Sean Murphy deal. And so, there's going to be a place for him somewhere. Will he make that next step to be a spot in the Braves rotation? I don't know. But I do think he'll be in the major leagues at some point in the next year or two, as, like I said, that fourth or fifth rotation, or that, that 2, 3, 4 inning guy out of the bullpen coming in following an opener.
Yeah. I'll throw a little bit of trivia at you here. I mentioned he was tied for the oldest player in the prospects, top 25 prospects for the Braves at 25 years old. Sean, I'm going to throw a pop quiz at you here. I'm going to take a gander. There's 2 other 25-year-olds that the Braves have in their prospect system right now, still have their rookie eligibility. Name one of the 2.
Let's see here. So 25 years old on the Braves prospect list, still have their rookie eligibility. Alan Winans.
So he's actually outside the top 25. He's also well older. He's 28 actually, which is shocking.
I knew he was something
so that was
like
a really
that.
good test.
I don't think. Yeah, but that was thinking about it. That was one of the first places I went to. How high is the guy? How high are they? You said he's tied with 2 other guys on the top 25?
Is. Number 15 and number 20.
Number 15 and number 20.
One is an infielder, one's a pitcher.
I don't know. Winans was my best guess. I'm just going to look it up.
I'll just lie and
say that I guessed it off the top of my head. Tell me him. Yeah, let's see what we got.
Number 15 ranked shortstop Braden Shoemake.
I knew that one.
And then the left-handed pitcher, number 20 in the system, Dylan Dodd.
Dodd, I didn't think Dodd was quite 25, but Dodd was my next guess. I lost Shoemake completely. He just was gone.
So is time.
Also, when we think of Braves when we think of Braves prospects, there's so much talk about pitching because so many of the prospects made appearances this year. You had Dodd, you had Smith Shawver, you had Vines, you had Schuster. You had a lot of those guys that made those appearances. So I was definitely there. Yeah. So, and then Winans, of course. But so, yeah, those are good. I don't think, I think both of those will get, they will both probably be part of a trade package at some point in the near future. Shoemaker is an excellent defensive shortstop. He's absolutely phenomenal. So I think again he's very much of the Simmons ilk as far as you're not playing him for a bat, but you're playing him because he's going to get to most of the stuff that you need him to get to at shortstop. So that's good stuff though. I would not have. I just lost Shoemaker for whatever reason.
Yeah. No, he's he's had a few at bats, just a couple of bats in the majors, so he's still somebody who knows. You could definitely see him maybe get an opportunity. But you mentioned you lost Shoemaker in the shuffle there. Speaking of losing, I'm gonna put you up now for your bet of the week. Not that you're gonna lose it, but you'll lose if you don't pick the Sandman's sleeper lock of the week. Sean, throw at me a bet. Where am I putting my money this week, man? This is not betting advice. I'm just saying that I'm gonna listen to what he's saying and I'm gonna bet on it, but it's not advice.
So I have a 4-leg NFL parlay that I'm throwing in this weekend. You can take any one of these and let it ride by himself, though. But I'm taking the Titans, who are underdogs against Pittsburgh. Pickett's coming off of an injury. Will Levis looked pretty good. So if he gets to continue to play and Pickett comes back, I like the Titans over the Steelers.
Will Levis did so good. I actually put mayo in my coffee. I did not. For the record, I did not. I as you can tell, I'm not in prison right now, so I clearly did not. But I almost put mayo in my coffee. I thought if that gets this guy feeling this good, I might have to see if there's something behind it.
He looked good, so I got him. I've got him for the. I like him in that Titans matchup. So they're plus 130 dogs. So Titans over the Steelers. I got the Browns over the Cardinals. This is more one of those more like layups. They're minus 375 favorite. Cardinals just traded Dobbs, planning on starting their rookie. And so, yeah. So I like the Browns there. Keeping with the Atlanta theme, I like the Falcons over the Vikings. Cousins is out. They just traded for Dobbs. So you kind of wonder, are they going to get Dobbs ready for this weekend? What's that going to look like? And Cousins was actually playing pretty good. So 18 touchdowns to 5 interceptions, I think, is where he was at. So you kind of wonder what that's going to do to the Minnesota offense. Atlanta's defense has been much improved this year, so I like the Falcons in that game. And then I like the Packers to beat the Rams. Another quarterback injury, Stafford coming off of that sprained thumb. You don't know if he's going to play yet. His status is still up in the air. But if the Rams don't have Stafford, I like the Packers to take the Rams down because I just think I don't remember what their backup's name is, but he came in and threw 10 passes. I think he was like 2 for 10. 5 of those went to Kupp and only 1 completion for 6 yards. So I don't like the things that are good about the Rams offense. I don't like without Matthew Stafford being in the game. And so I got the Packers there. So that's a 4-leg parlay. Titans, Browns, Falcons, Packers.
Yeah.
That's my lock of the week.
Fun betting thing I wanted to bring up was that there is a game going on at Wrigley Field this weekend, and it's Northwestern versus Iowa.
Ooh.
And the betting line on the over-under for that game is the lowest in college football history. The over-under is 29.5 points in a football game. And if I could give any advice which I'm not giving advice, I don't give advice, no gambling advice. My advice to myself would be to slam the under on that one. There's no way those teams score 30 points. But
No way. No way. So the Rangers are up
well,
10
I think we
nothing
know who's going to win that one then.
in the top of the fourth.
So 3-1 series as we get off the air. We'll have a champion by the time that we record next. If I wait a day, we might have a champion before this episode even goes up, based on how that series is going. But then it's full off season, man. It's all gonna be about getting ready for 2024. We know the Braves are in a really good spot, but we'll be there for the ride to see exactly how they get themselves ready to go for another season coming soon. That's all that I got for this episode, Mr. Sandman. Do you have anything else that you need to get off your chest for Braves country?
Just be on the lookout. I mean, if this series ends in the next day or two, we've got 5 days for them to make decisions on Morton, Rosario, Yates, and those options there. They've got 5 days from the day the World Series ends. And so we could have some more off-season moves done already by the time we record next week. So we need to keep an eye out on those things, and let's see what the Atlanta Braves do here in the offseason as we get ready for 24.
Well, Sean, I'm going to go ahead and say our goodbyes then. That is Sandman Sean. I am Dirty Dave. Braves country, we are out for this week, and we'll catch you on the next one.